Hello, I'm David. I am 61 years old, residing in a serene little town on the fringes of a place known as Oak Ridge. It's the sort of location where events seem to fade into the background, leaving a sense of stillness in the air. Individuals are familiar with one another, the avenues exude tranquility, and on most occasions, you find yourself free to pursue your own interests. It has been roughly a decade since I became a widower. My beloved wife, Mary, succumbed to cancer. It took its time. It was quite a challenge. It unfolded over several years, and by the conclusion, there was little of her remaining. I grasped her hand throughout the journey, yet when she departed, it seemed as though a piece of my very essence left alongside her. Once she passed away, silence enveloped everything. Without children, my days lacked the impetus to stay occupied. I merely existed. There comes a time when one begins to embrace the notion that life may not undergo significant transformations, and the most remarkable moments may already be in the past. I had anticipated that the later years would bring a wealth of insight. Perhaps a journey, a touch of tranquility. However, that wasn't the end for me. My days have been rather uneventful, for the most part. I am employed as a security guard at a warehouse. The work may not be extraordinary, yet it occupies my time effectively. I observe the cameras, inspect the perimeter, ensuring everything is in order. The warehouse is situated in a serene industrial area, with a surrounding neighborhood that boasts safety. Each night, I patrol the grounds, surveying the area for any signs of unwelcome visitors. Typically, it's just wandering dogs or kids trying to sneak a smoke, nothing too concerning. It's not a difficult task, honestly, and that's precisely how I prefer it. Nothing unexpected, no tension, merely tranquility. I earn just enough to maintain my needs, and that's sufficient for me. On certain evenings, I find myself in silence, not engaging in conversation with anyone. The soft buzz of the security monitors mingles with the distant wail of a siren from the highway a mile off. It's a regular occurrence. It's straightforward. I suppose I never truly envisioned what the later years of life might hold. The journey of aging is rarely outlined, particularly when one navigates it in solitude. I envisioned it brimming with memories, joyful moments, family gatherings, perhaps some serene times in the yard or on the porch. However, following Mary's departure, it feels as though time has come to a standstill. The house resonates with a profound stillness, mirroring the void I sense within my life. Each day unfolds in a familiar rhythm, following the same path to work, encountering the same faces, and occasionally crossing paths with someone in the store. However, everything shifted a few months back. It caught me completely off guard. I was completely taken by surprise by her. One afternoon, my boss, Mr. Martin, made his way to the warehouse. He was accompanied by his daughter, Lily. She's 30, roughly the same age as my niece, but that's not what struck me. It was simply the manner in which she presented herself. Assured, elegant. It had been years since I experienced such a stirring sensation. Have you ever experienced that moment when someone gazes at you, and you can feel an undeniable spark? I was caught off guard, and I definitely wasn't ready for it. She acknowledged me as if I were merely another face in the crowd. "Hello, Mr. David. My name is Lily." The sound of her voice, the warmth of her smile. It felt as if a part of me, long dormant, had abruptly come to life. I had to restrain myself from gazing. My heart raced, and I found myself unable to understand the reason behind it. It had been ages since I experienced that feeling. It felt like a jarring wake-up call to the existence I had been navigating. I was aware it was not right. She was the boss's daughter, youthful, stunning, and certainly beyond my reach. But wow, she truly stirred something within me. I repeatedly reassured myself that it was merely a fleeting instance. It was likely merely the astonishment of encountering something fresh, something vibrant, after all this time. Yet, each time she accompanied her father to the warehouse, the experience remained just as challenging. She entered with a bright smile and an air of professionalism, stirring up a wave of emotions that transported me back to my youthful days at 25. I understood how absurd it was to entertain the thought, yet it persisted regardless. It has been several days since I first encountered Lily, and now her presence is becoming more frequent. Mr. Martin took her to the warehouse several times each week. Initially, she was merely visiting, but now she has taken on a role here, supervising the staff, inspecting the packages, ensuring that everything is executed correctly. Her presence transforms the atmosphere entirely. Each time she steps through that threshold, it hits me like a blow to the stomach. I've been at this for years, caught in the same cycle, with nothing ever truly shifting. Yet, each morning, I catch myself glancing at the clock, anticipating her arrival. When she does, I sense a warmth enveloping me, as if I've been revived, as if a part of me that I believed had faded away is stirring back to life. It's absurd, I realize, but each time I catch a glimpse of her, I feel this surge, as if I'm back to being 18 once more. She possesses a captivating beauty, undeniably, yet there's an essence within her that transcends mere appearance. It's in her movements, in her words. There's something about the sound of her laughter. She has a remarkable ability to transform even the dullest tasks into something captivating. It's amusing how I've dedicated a significant portion of my life to solitude. I had Mary, naturally, but we never had children. My existence had shrunk to a mere whisper, enveloped in stillness. I never imagined I would experience these emotions once more. Yet, with each step Lily takes through those doors, time seems to dissolve around her. I stand there, observing her, and a sense of happiness washes over me, a feeling I haven't experienced in decades. It's hard to put into words, but there's a sense of youthfulness that has returned to me. However, I also feel utterly defeated. There's a heaviness in my chest, a persistent reminder that this will lead nowhere. I am no longer the person I was 3 decades ago. I fall short of being the person she truly deserves. She stands at the beginning of a vast journey, with endless possibilities stretching out before her. A journey, a home, a horizon that I can't even start to envision. She's just beginning her journey, while I'm nearing the conclusion of mine. She has choices. She harbors aspirations. Who, me? I have accomplished what I was able to. I've put in the hours, built a life for myself, and now I find myself in a moment of reflection, anticipating the passage of time. I've nearly exhausted all that I can offer. I am aware of that. And that's what hurts the deepest. Yet, that seems to be the issue, doesn't it? These feelings are inescapable. Emotions cannot simply be wiped away, particularly when they strike with such intensity. Whenever she stops by, I can't help but feel utterly ridiculous. There she stands, poised before me, exuding an air of authority and competence. And here I find myself, 61 years young, behaving like a giddy teenager in love. It's utterly ridiculous. I sense a deep conflict within myself. I understand that it's perfectly fine to admire someone, but this feels different. It seems to resonate with a deeper significance. It evokes a sense of desire, a yearning for something that seems out of reach. The moment she smiled at me, it struck me with an intensity one hadn't anticipated. She has such a gentle spirit and a warm heart, and I find myself at a loss for words. I find myself utterly overwhelmed. I'm at a loss for words when it comes to her now. It's difficult to meet her gaze without being reminded of the inherent wrongness of it all. Each dialogue seems contrived, as if I'm exerting excessive effort to conceal my emotions, despite the undeniable truth that she doesn't share my sentiments. I remind myself that I might just be acting foolishly. Isn't it merely a temporary stage? Perhaps it's simply due to her being new here, and I haven't encountered someone like her in quite a while. Perhaps it's merely a solitary elder, clinging to remnants of a past that has faded away. Yet, each time I encounter her, I can't help but ponder whether such feelings can exist without leading to regret. The pain is overwhelming, yet I find myself at a loss for how to alleviate it. I continually remind myself that there's no potential outcome from it. She's beyond my reach. She is youthful, full of life, and she deserves a partner who is at a similar stage in life. Someone destined for great things, unlike myself. I prefer not to be that person. The individual who finds themselves enamored with someone incapable of returning that affection. Every time she steps into the warehouse, my heart inexplicably skips a beat. It's foolish. I realize it may seem foolish, yet I find myself at a loss for how to put an end to it. I find it challenging to let go of emotions that seem so evidently misplaced. And that's what truly shatters me. I found myself at a loss, unsure of my next steps. I felt as though I was burdened by an invisible load, a heaviness that clung to me and refused to let go. After all these years of solitude, I thought I would have grown accustomed to it, yet everything feels changed now. Having Lily in my life feels like I've stepped through a doorway that I can never shut again. Despite my efforts to cast it aside, it relentlessly returns. I never anticipated experiencing these emotions once more. Not at this stage of my life. I often found humor in the idea that one can fall in love at any stage of life. However, now that I am experiencing it firsthand, it's not something I can easily dismiss with a chuckle. I understand that it's not appropriate. I'm aware that it's unattainable. She is youthful. She possesses an exquisite beauty. She has an entire future waiting for her. And here I find myself. Simply a man who has journeyed through life, who has experienced his share of moments. Yet emotions remain indifferent to reason. My age is of no concern to them. They seem indifferent to the countless years I've dedicated to setting these matters aside. They are present. Weighty and authentic. And I can no longer overlook them. It feels as though I'm poised on the brink of an unknown expanse. I'm hesitant to move ahead, yet the thought of looking back fills me with fear as well. I'm feeling quite lost with all of this. I find myself uncertain about whom to approach. Who would truly comprehend? Who would actually pay attention? It's been years since I've shared anything about my wife, Mary. It has been a decade since she left us. A decade has passed since I lost the one woman who held my heart completely. Since then, I've kept my distance from others. I have kept to my own company. I held my feelings inside. But now, it seems as though something is shattering within me. I attended church yesterday. I wasn't entirely sure of the reason. Perhaps it was the burden of it all, the turmoil within my heart. I considered that perhaps sharing my thoughts with another person, or even reaching out to a higher power, might provide clarity in this confusing situation. As I sat there, absorbing the priest's words, reflections on my life began to swirl in my mind. Concerning Mary. Concerning all that has transpired. She was the only individual I ever felt comfortable enough to share my deepest thoughts with. The sole person who truly recognized my essence. The sole person capable of making me feel truly understood. There was a serene quality to her presence. This subtle resilience that rendered everything bearable, even amidst chaos. She was my foundation. And when she passed away, it felt as though the ground beneath me had changed entirely. Yesterday, a thought struck me. I haven't allowed myself to experience these feelings for anyone since her. Far from it. I believed that a piece of my soul had perished alongside her. Yet, here I find myself, drawn to Lily once more, despite the knowledge that it is misguided. Following the service, I made my way to the cemetery. I hadn't given it a moment's thought. I felt an undeniable urge to leave. I felt a strong urge to be near Mary. I felt the urge to speak with her, despite the awareness that she wasn't truly present. Yet, I found myself in need of her. I lingered at her grave, the chill of the wind swirling about me, and I found myself speaking. I shared all my thoughts with her. I expressed to her the depth of my confusion. How deeply I longed for her presence. I never anticipated experiencing these emotions once more. I shared with her the story of Lily. Every time I catch a glimpse of her, my heart quickens, and my mind swirls with thoughts I know I ought to dismiss. I expressed to her that I was uncertain about how to handle these emotions. I found myself at a loss, unsure of how to bear this burden any longer. In the stillness of the cemetery, a realization dawned upon me. I wasn't merely burdened by guilt over Lily. I found myself grappling with a sense of guilt for continuing to hold feelings for Mary. Even after all this time, my love for her remains strong. Part of me feels as though I'm betraying her by even considering anyone else, even if my feelings aren't the same as they were for her. I find myself at a loss on how to navigate this situation. I'm struggling to find a way to make sense of these emotions. I continually remind myself that it's perfectly normal to experience these feelings. I continue to exist. That my heart continues to beat. I have the right to experience emotions. Yet, it seems off. I sense that I'm slipping away from grasping something I ought to handle. I lingered for what felt like an eternity, gazing at the headstone, enveloped in a sense of disorientation. I reflected on all that I've experienced, the life I've led, and how little I truly grasp it all. I lack the solutions. I'm uncertain about how to navigate these emotions I have for Lily. However, I am certain of one thing. I can't overlook this indefinitely. This is an issue that won't resolve itself without intervention. At this moment, I'm uncertain about the next steps to take. I'm uncertain about what the next step should be. The weight of that uncertainty, that confusion, is the most challenging burden to bear. I pondered over it for quite a while. Days, indeed. The harder I attempted to dismiss it, the heavier those emotions became. I considered reaching out to someone, but who would be the right person to confide in? Who could possibly grasp this? I didn't truly fear others' opinions, not at all. That wasn't the focus. I realized that remaining silent, keeping it all inside, would only exacerbate the situation. This was not about anticipation. It wasn't about seeking anything in exchange. It was a revelation I needed to express, a truth I had concealed from my own awareness for far too long. I felt no fear regarding Lily's words or her response. I felt no fear regarding Mr. Martin's potential thoughts if he were to discover the truth. It transcended all of that. A sensation stirred within me, one that I found impossible to dismiss. An emotion that gradually enveloped me, one I struggled to coexist with. I needed to express it. I felt compelled to share with her, for I sensed that my time was running short. The burden of unexpressed thoughts weighed heavily upon me, making it impossible to find peace in death. As she returned to the warehouse, I sensed that the moment had finally arrived. Anticipation had been building within me, though I only realized it when she entered the room, her familiar radiant smile lighting up the space. "Hello, Mr. Davy. How are things progressing on your end?" she inquired, radiating her usual cheerfulness. I smiled, yet the warmth never touched my eyes. "Everything's going well, Lily, but if you could spare a moment, I'd love to have a chat with you." She moved forward without the hesitation I had anticipated. "Of course, just a moment please." I watched her retreat, a familiar sensation flooding through me once more. In just a few moments, she would arrive at my office. I was completely lost in my actions. I was uncertain if it was the correct choice, yet I understood that I could no longer endure this sensation. 20 minutes later, she emerged at the door, her head peeking around the corner. "Mr. Davy, did you wish to have a conversation?" I gestured toward the chair positioned in front of my desk. "Kindly take a seat, Lily. I have something to share with you." She gazed at me, a hint of confusion in her eyes, yet she refrained from asking any questions. She settled into her seat, anticipation hanging in the air as she awaited my words. I inhaled deeply, feeling a slight tremor in my hands, yet I compelled myself to calm them down. "I have something to share with you. A thought that has been lingering in my mind for quite some time. There's no need for concern, and you shouldn't feel any obligation towards me. I have no expectations from you. I feel compelled to express this, as it has been heavy on my mind." Lily remained silent, her gaze gentle, allowing me the freedom to express myself. "I've been enduring this for quite a while, far longer than necessary." I pressed on, my voice unwavering yet brimming with feeling. "It has been a decade since I lost my wife. Mary meant the world to me. Though we never welcomed children into our lives, the dream of them always lingered in our hearts. As I cradled her in my arms during her final moments, it felt as though a piece of my very soul was taken from me that day. I'd been navigating the routine ever since. Merely being. And then, upon encountering you here, everything shifted. I gazed into her eyes, yearning for her to comprehend. I understand this might be puzzling, but whenever I see you, I experience a certain feeling. It's not solely about your appearance, even though you are stunning. Your warmth, your radiant smile, the grace with which you move through the world. You evoke the essence of what it means to truly feel alive once more. And Lily, I've been wrestling with these emotions, attempting to cast them aside, for I understand they have no rightful place. You have an entire journey waiting for you. You possess your profession, your loved ones, and all that you hold dear. And I'm merely a relic of my former days, anchored in memories long gone. I halted, gazing at my hands. Despite feeling exposed, I pressed on without hesitation. I'm not requesting anything from you, Lily. I'm not expecting you to share the same feelings. I feel compelled to share this with you, as it's the honest reality, and I can no longer bear the weight of it alone. I refuse to leave this world carrying this weight within me, this heaviness pressing down on my heart, without expressing my true feelings to you. Silence enveloped the room for a brief instant. It was impossible to discern whether I had just committed the gravest error of my existence or if I had taken the correct path. My heart raced as I anxiously awaited her reply. She remained seated for a moment, reflecting on all I had just conveyed, and then, with a composed and measured tone, she began to speak. "Mr. Davy, I truly value you taking the time to share that with me," she expressed. "It's truly a compliment to know I evoke such feelings in you. Indeed, you have a point. Between us, nothing will unfold. You've already expressed it yourself. Our lives have taken us to very different places. I comprehend. I truly do. I'm really pleased you shared that with me. It must have been challenging for you to bear this weight alone." I released a breath I hadn't known I was holding. "I appreciate your understanding. That holds greater significance for me than you can imagine." She offered me a gentle, knowing smile. "I trust this brings you some comfort, Mr. Davy. It's reassuring that you no longer have to bear this burden by yourself." And, just like that, the burden on my chest seemed to lift. It wasn't entirely absent, but it had improved. Having expressed everything that weighed on my mind, I found myself, for the first time in ages, able to take a deep breath once more. For days now, it's been on my mind. Each time I shut my eyes, I find myself revisiting that dialogue with Lily. It took me completely by surprise. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. Here I stand, at 60, experiencing the same vibrancy I felt at 20. The fluttering of butterflies, that thrilling anticipation. Everything has returned. It seems utterly ridiculous, to be honest. Honestly, at this stage in my life, what could really come of it? What was I really anticipating? I ought to have been more aware. However, it wasn't centered on expectations. It revolved around my emotions. Why I continue to experience emotions. Isn't it amusing how life unfolds? You believe you have everything under control, and then an unexpected event occurs that rattles you deeply. I have experienced a rich and fulfilling existence. I've experienced my fair share of highs and lows, but this emotion I hold for Lily, it's unlike anything else. It's not about her age, or her youth, or anything of that nature. It's all about the emotions she evokes in me. She awakens a part of me that I believed was lost forever. It defies reason. It's an aspect beyond your influence, and I believe that's the most challenging realization to come to terms with. I stand proud of my feelings, regardless. Not any longer. I appreciate Lily for her attentive ear and her compassionate nature. She could have easily brushed it aside or made me feel foolish, but she chose not to. She remained seated, attentive, and honored my words. Your words truly resonate with me. I have always held Mr. Martin in high regard, and I feel the same way about Lily. Their kindness and respect are gifts I truly cherish. This sensation serves as a valuable lesson. A gentle reminder that regardless of age, your heart still holds the power to astonish you. It seems that's the burden that has been pressing on my mind the most. The issue isn't that Lily and I can never unite. I came to terms with that quite some time ago. The mere existence of these feelings is what truly matters. What is their purpose? What prompts this moment? I have dedicated my life to the weight of responsibilities, to the tasks that demanded attention, to the realities of existence. Yet here I find myself, confronting feelings I never anticipated revisiting. Isn't that the charm of existence? No matter how much you believe you understand, there's always an additional layer to uncover. A fresh opportunity for knowledge awaits. An unforeseen revelation awaits. Yet it also brings a sense of bewilderment and anguish, leaving me uncertain about how to navigate through it. Reflecting on that moment with Lily fills me with gratitude. Feeling thankful for the opportunity to express my emotions, despite knowing it would lead to nothing. Thankful that she chose to stand by me instead of ridiculing me. Yet, I cannot overlook the pain that lingers within me. It exists, and it won't vanish simply because I've uttered the phrases. I have dedicated my entire existence to the belief that love is a fleeting experience, something that arrives and departs. Opportunities come knocking in youth, and if you let them slip away, that's simply how it goes. Yet here I find myself, pondering why affection has chosen to visit me once more, at a moment when I believed I had moved on from such matters. I've accepted that there will be no developments between Lily and me. That's perfectly fine. I'm okay with that. But how can I navigate these emotions? How can I come to terms with the reality that my heart still yearns for something beyond reach, despite knowing it's unattainable? And that's the reason I find myself here, positioned before this camera, engaging in conversation with you. This situation leaves me feeling uncertain about the next steps to take. Perhaps some among you have experienced similar feelings. Perhaps some of you can relate to my experience, where you've developed feelings for someone who is simply out of reach. I'm not sure which is more painful, facing rejection or missing the opportunity to express myself at all. As I sit here with this weight in my chest, I find myself wondering what steps I should take next. What steps can I take to let go of this? Have any of you ever shared your feelings with someone only to face rejection? Or perhaps, akin to my experience, you've had to endure the awareness that nothing can transpire, yet that sensation lingers on. How did you manage to get through it? How did you come to terms with the idea that, at times, emotions simply are, and we have no control over them? I eagerly await your insights and reflections, as I find myself uncertain about how to find resolution in this matter. Perhaps some of you have experienced what I am going through. Perhaps you can relate to experiencing these feelings and being uncertain about the next steps to take. I simply seek reassurance that I am not navigating this journey in solitude. Lately, I found myself pondering something quite a bit. As I sit here, contemplating all that I've expressed, I find myself questioning whether others perceive me as irrational. Perhaps you feel the same way. I'm uncertain. Perhaps, after absorbing all this, you're contemplating that this individual has completely lost their grip. He has outgrown the capacity to experience these emotions. He's completely lost it. Perhaps you have a point. Perhaps I'm a touch eccentric. However, do you realize something? I've reached a point where it no longer matters to me. For those who have genuinely experienced love, who have truly felt that emotion envelop every aspect of their existence, you will comprehend. You'll realize that it can't be contained. It's not as simple as just flipping a switch, turning it off like a light. That's not how it operates. It's simple for people to pass judgment, to claim that I ought to have moved beyond all of this. Perhaps, in their perspective, I ought to be, considering I am 60 years old. I have experienced a rich and fulfilling existence. Yet, affection knows no bounds when it comes to age. It disregards reason. It disregards what is logical. It simply occurs. It creeps up on you. And before you even notice, it appears. And there's nothing you can do to change that. Earlier, I found myself engaged in a conversation with my own thoughts, attempting to unravel the complexities of it all. Honestly, I have no power over who captures my heart or who I start to care for. If anyone were to suggest that this is merely a phase, a fleeting infatuation, I would firmly assert that they are completely mistaken. This is genuine. This is not an experience you can simply dismiss. Not when it strikes with such force. People tend to believe that you should have mastery over your emotions, don't they? There's a belief that if you're not 18, if you're not youthful, if you're not still navigating your path, then you ought to have everything sorted out. However, that is simply not the way it operates. That's not the way love operates. Sometimes, it's astonishing how easily one can become enamored with something as uncomplicated as a dog, a beloved pet. Forming a connection with an animal can transform your existence, making it hard to envision life without their presence. One experiences that deep connection, that intense desire to safeguard it, nurture it. That's the essence of love. It binds you to another person or an object. It evokes emotions that are beyond your control. There is no distinction between the affection we hold for a person and the bond we share with a pet. The emotions remain unchanged. The intensity remains unchanged. I'm not quite sure why I'm sharing all of this with you. Perhaps it's due to my efforts to unravel my own bewilderment. Perhaps it's rooted in a desire for someone to truly grasp my feelings, to reassure me that I'm not losing my mind. This sensation is one I can't simply dismiss. It's not something I can simply brush aside. It resides deep within me, and there's nothing I can do to change it. Here I stand, ready to unveil my narrative to you. Perhaps it's due to my desire for someone to listen and truly grasp the essence of this experience. Perhaps some of you have experienced what I am going through. Perhaps you've experienced this and understand just how daunting it can become. Perhaps you understand the experience of a love that eludes control, defies explanation, and resists comprehension. I'm uncertain whether I'm seeking guidance. I'm uncertain about whether I'm seeking answers. I simply desire for someone to comprehend. Perhaps this is something I will carry with me indefinitely. Perhaps I will need to accept it. Yet, I can no longer contain this within me. I must express it. I want to pass it along to someone who may understand it. I have no expectations regarding Lily. I don't anticipate her altering anything, nor do I expect her to share the same feelings. I simply had to express it. At times, it's impossible to hold those emotions inside. At times, the weight becomes overwhelming. Perhaps, in expressing this, I might discover a sense of tranquility. If you've experienced what I have, if you've ever found yourself drawn to someone you know is off-limits or unattainable, I would love to hear from you. Please reassure me that I'm not facing this by myself. Please reassure me that I'm not losing my mind. At this moment, that's everything I require. A person who understands.